Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by the Agri-News Director for 620 CKRM Regina, Ryan Young, as well as the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch. I'm Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton. And the big news this week, gentlemen, of course, was the announcement by India imposing a 30% import duty on yellow peas effective November 1st. And of course, not just Canada, but for the entire world. But definitely, Kevin, some news that we didn't want to hear at this time.
Been rumored for a long time, and it would be rumored, and oh no, it's not going to happen. It's going to remain tariff-free until at least the end of March. But the decision was changed, and India did slap a 30% tariff on. Not helpful at all when China market is basically closed with a 100% tariff, and India's now got a 30% tariff, and those are by far our two largest customers for yellow peas. I was surprised, though. I was expecting an immediate price shock and price reduction in yellow peas, and I haven't seen a whole lot of bids since the announcement. But it doesn't appear that the price shock was immediate. But it is a very different situation than the tariff from China, which is Canada specific and political in nature. This is all internal India politics and not abnormal as they try to balance farmer returns with consumer prices to make these sorts of adjustments.
Ryan, you had a chance to speak with the president of APAS, Bill Prybilski. He was pretty disappointed about the announcement.
He was, yeah. Overall, not a very good thing, not a very good piece of news to hear. When I asked him his initial reaction about the announcement, he had heard about some pulse prices being under pressure, kind of leading up to the announcement, but that could likely be due to harvest pressure that we kind of see every year. So there could be just more than one component to how the prices are trending right now, but yeah, overall, he does feel very disappointed. It's just one thing after another. Like Kevin said, the Chinese tariffs on peas as well doesn't really help matters either, and doesn't really read too much into it from a political perspective. He said, if it was just on Canada, then of course it would be political, but the fact that it's on everybody, it is what it is. So those were kind of his comments overall.
Yeah, and I had a chance to speak with Greg Cherwick, the president of Pulse Canada. Of course, he was disappointed as well, but not surprised. He'd heard the rumors for the last month and a half or so. And of course, he says, yeah, it's easy to say, let's go get other international markets, and perhaps there's more domestic market opportunity as well. But he said when 80% of yellow peas have been going to China and India, it's going to be hard to replace it overnight, which is impossible. So interesting times ahead, Kevin.
Yes, and I would expect this will really weigh on seeding decisions for 2026, that the carryover of peas is likely to be large, and pea acreage, particularly yellow pea acreage, is likely to take a big hit in the upcoming year unless we see a dramatic change in the tariff situation.
And Ryan, of course, you had a chance to speak with Tice Massich with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. The final Saskatchewan crop report of the year came out on Thursday, and what were you able to glean from that?
Well, the fact that, according to Tice, yields and crop quality were kind of better than expected, and they were still above average. Now, again, he said before, it doesn't necessarily mean a bumper crop or a record-breaking crop. It's just simply above historical averages, and the numbers kind of spell that out by various crop types. And then with the regions, it gets a little more unique than that, depending on where you are. The better yields, obviously, coming in areas where a lot of precipitation has come down, whether that's in your area, Doug, in the east central region, kind of the Yorkton and Estevan areas to the southeast, the northeast as well, and the west central areas, and then the northwest. And for a time, the southwest, not really good yields, kind of below average, but the southwest, where Kevin farms, it's kind of a bit of an outlier, which was another kind of interesting point from the crop report was the fact that the Southwest was dry to start and then finally got precipitation in the middle of July going into August and then maybe a little bit more into September during the harvest season. but that seemed to help out with crop development and kind of catch up a little bit. Still some challenges as well when it comes to like crop regrowth and, pest challenges. The pest side of things, not really as widespread over compared to the last couple of years, rather. But still, some pockets of areas we're kind of dealing with, like Richardson ground squirrels, Bertha army worms, etc. So, a few things to kind of glean on from the crop report. If anyone wants to check that out, they can head out to saskagtoday.com and check out the full crop report there. But overall, kind of a better season than expected.
Kevin, did anything stand out in that crop report for you?
No, we'd heard most of it. None of it was a big surprise. It's interesting to see their cumulative information for the entire year. Also interesting, as Ryan mentioned, to look at the provincial crop yield estimates and go crop by crop, and every one of them is above the 10-year average. Some of them by a significant amount. The 10-year average on canola is 34 bushels an acre. This one is a little over 42 this year. So, in across the board, all of the crops are to a greater or lesser extent above the 10-year average. So they never did put a number on and say there's X number million tons coming out of Saskatchewan as far as what the total production will be. But from these above average yields, it'll be interesting to look at that number, and maybe it won't be a record, as they say, but it's still overall a darn good crop from a year that at many times looked like it was going to have a serious shortfall.
We also heard that Bill Huber, the president of SARM, made the trip to Ottawa recently for some lobbying efforts. And Ryan, you had a chance to speak with him once he returned, and I thought there were a few interesting things that came out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things that we kind of talked about. Obviously, what we've been talking about is the trade front, whether it's the Chinese tariffs. Didn't really talk about the duties that India just imposed because, we hadn't heard about that until Thursday. So, mainly on China and kind of brought up, their point of view about, restoring market access is important. So, especially as farmers take the canola crop off and it's in the bin, but no market to sell it to. So that was one thing that they talked about during some meetings. Another one that was kind of interesting, guys, was follow up on strychnine. Now, this is something that's been a conversation within the agricultural community over the last few years. We know that it was banned back in 2024. But Bill Huber claimed that he got a commitment from Federal Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald that they'll quote, go ahead with legislation to reintroduce the use of strychnine on an emergency basis, providing the provincial government, Ministry of Ag, and the municipalities participate in that program, end quote. So I thought that was kind of interesting and just kind of out of the blue, considering I hadn't heard anything from Ag Canada themselves about, reinstating strychnine. So I reached out to ask, if they were aware about it and if it's true. And finally, a spokesperson did get back to me a couple of days later on Thursday, and I'm just going to read to you their response to me via email. They say, while appearing at the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food on October 23rd, Minister MacDonald was asked whether he would support producers or provinces if they applied to the Pest Management Regulatory Agency within Health Canada for an emergency registration of strychnine. The minister responded that yes, he would be supportive. However, the decision to grant an emergency registration ultimately rests within Health Canada. Given the ongoing challenges in managing Richardson ground squirrels, Minister MacDonald supports provincial departments of agriculture and industry associations engaging with the PMRA through the emergency registration process. His support reflects a broader commitment to ensuring farmers have access to affordable and effective tools that safeguard their livelihoods and health while promote environmental sustainability, end quote. So, all that to say that he would be supportive if, provincial governments and industry associations apply for use of strychnine, but only on an emergency basis if it's a last resort, and nothing to do with any sort of legislation. So take that for what you will. And then another thing that we kind of talked about was Lake Diefenbaker, the irrigation project specifically. They wanted an answer from the federal government, and we know that SARM has asked repeatedly over the years since it was first announced, I think, back in 2020, if the feds are going to invest money into the irrigation project. And they haven't really gotten a straight answer from the feds other than just deferring to the infrastructure bank. And from what Bill said, the reception this time around was a little more positive, a little more of listening and being attentive to what they had to say. So I guess for Bill, it's another positive there, but we'll see where that goes at the end of the day. I kind of have my doubts whether the feds will formally commit to the irrigation project or not. We know the province is moving ahead with it regardless. So those were a lot of things to kind of break down and kind of digest from Bill's latest trip to Ottawa.
Kevin, I thought the strychnine issue was pretty big. Are there issues with Richardson ground squirrels in your area of the farm there?
There certainly are in many areas. Gophers are a serious problem. I'm a little surprised that any headway has been made on strychnine, even on an emergency basis. Although I certainly sympathize with producers fighting a serious gopher problem. And this week I talked with the head of CropLife Canada about reducing regulatory burden, and I'm all for that. But I'm not sure that strychnine is something we want to hang our hats on. Perhaps for limited emergency use, but it was banned for some pretty good reasons. I think there are some pretty good alternatives to strychnine, and producers, I don't think, have given some of those alternative products a fair shot at what they can do. But that's my individual opinion. There certainly is a lot of push from the ag community to bring strychnine back.
We also saw this week the Bank of Canada changed their interest rate to 2.25%. That was something you followed up on, Ryan.
Yeah, I talked with Adam Picallo about his thoughts on the Bank of Canada doing that, and he's part of the overall consensus among economists that this wasn't a surprise that the Bank of Canada was going to do that. To kind of put the reasons to simple terms, the bank cited a weaker Canadian economy, weaker real GDP growth, due to all the trade uncertainty and the constant tariffs and tariff threats from the United States as reasons why they're reducing the rates. So those were kind of the major factors there. Also citing some mixed job numbers and economy numbers as well. So Adam said that it kind of looks like the Bank of Canada is taking a more cautious approach moving forward to see where things go from here on out. But Adam does expect at least one more rate cut before the end of the year, as the last decision is going to be on December 10th.
Kevin, does this interest rate change have much of an impact on the everyday producer out there?
No, I don't think a great deal. Obviously, variable rate mortgages should become slightly less expensive. Any new loans might become slightly less expensive. I think it's just more interesting to see the analysis on the reasons behind interest rate decisions with inflation versus core inflation versus job numbers versus performance of the economy, GDP growth, all of those other factors that get discussed around the interest rate decisions, I find more interesting and also pertinent to the ag community.
And Kevin, you also provided us this week with a story regarding CropLife Canada and how they would like to see perhaps some less regulations. Can you go into that a bit for us?
Well, I think it's something that's come up time and time again, but probably doesn't get the concerted attention it deserves. The PMRA, the Pest Management Regulatory Agency, also the CFIA, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, have long been criticized for being overly bureaucratic, overly cautious. And the head of CropLife Canada, Pierre Patel, points out that in a big market like Brazil or the US, the people trying to register new products have to jump through the hoops, and there's a big prize at the end. Those are big markets. Canada is a relatively small market compared to those countries. So if we put on extra items for precautionary purposes that companies have to jump through, and it takes years extra to get a product registered in Canada. First of all, it takes those years to get products to producers, but some companies just won't go through the added time and cost. He believes we're losing out on a great deal of economic activity, productivity growth, because our regulatory agencies have been more than cautious, overly cautious, and that's come from the top down. That the politicians don't stand up for the PMRA and CFIA, that the people within those organizations don't want to ever err on the side of taking any risk at all. They want to be overly cautious, overly sure about everything, and I think they make excellent points, and all of the farm organizations really have teamed up with CropLife Canada to try to spread that message in Ottawa that really we need less regulatory burden if we want innovation in Canada and in Canadian agriculture.
Another story you provided us with this week, Kevin, was about feed testing and how many livestock producers out there actually get their feed tested. I thought that was an interesting one.
There's a difference of opinion depending upon the survey, when the survey was taken, what the questions are asked, but there seems little doubt that many cow-calf producers do not do any feed testing on a regular basis, maybe never do any feed testing, and really they're flying blind. Yes, the livestock may look healthy enough, but are you missing some essential nutrients? Is your productivity where it should be? And in this day and age, you can't control the price of things. The price we sell at is the price it's going to be. You can control your cost of production. And I just think that, oftentimes we talk about soil testing. Well, soil testing is important. I would believe that feed testing is probably even a better bang for your buck than soil testing in many instances. And there's people out there that can help you with the results and interpret them. And if you're short a critical mineral or a supplement, or maybe you can use less expensive feed ingredients and get the same results. I think it's important for producers to know, and useful that people continue to talk about the benefits of feed testing.
And Ryan, you had a story this week about the upcoming Census of Agriculture, and that's something I guess producers need to be looking forward to in the new year.
That's right. The Census of Agriculture, it's similar to a regular census. It's done every 5 years, even going back as far as 1921. The first Census of Agriculture was done that year, but it basically provides a wide range of data on various agricultural topics, and they kind of range from land use to machinery and equipment, crops, land management practices, livestock, farm finances, and agricultural labor. And going into the 2026 census, I was told by Paul Dirk, he's the head of the Census of Agriculture, and he said some of the changes include, to better reflect the current agricultural industry as we see it today, and also just, reducing the questions or getting rid of any redundancy to kind of make it easier and quicker to complete the questionnaire, which takes about half an hour to complete. So those would be some of the things. And he said that producers should be getting a letter in the mail at the beginning of May, the week of May 4th specifically, about a letter to participate in the census with an access code that farmers can then use online to complete the questionnaire. But he said if farmers don't get a letter by that point, or a little bit in the subsequent weeks afterward, they can go on to the Census of Ag website and complete the questionnaire without the access code. So something to keep in mind for the mailboxes. Week of May 4th, Census of Ag letters should be coming to farmers.
Kevin, I'm sure you've filled out your share of Census of Agriculture forms over the years. Are they a help or a hindrance to farmers?
I think it's useful for data collection and the industry and government to understand the ag industry. So I think it's critical all advanced economies and countries in the world do this sort of thing. It's good to see they're streamlining it and making it easier to complete. It's really unfortunate that they've decided it has to be in May. The beginning of May is a very busy time for almost everybody in agriculture, especially crop producers. So that's unfortunate, but it seems to be the timing that they believe is necessary. But again, good on them for trying to streamline it and make it less onerous.
All right, and one final thing I wanted to mention is that the Grain Millers Harvest Showdown is coming up in Yorkton next week. It runs Wednesday, November 5th through Saturday, November 8th. There will be a grain, forage, and seed show, a commercial cattle show, a trade show, heavy horse pulls, a ranch rodeo, a chore team show, a stock dog competition, a senior supper and dance, and of course, it's free admission to the grounds for that event. Of course, there is a Mazer Group PBR on Friday and Saturday night here in Yorkton. You need tickets for that, though. You can get your tickets at www.yorktonexhibition.com or just go into the Yorkton Exhibition office for those tickets. So that's coming up next week, Grain Millers Harvest Showdown in Yorkton. And on that note, that'll do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch, and the 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director, Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director, saying so long until next time.